Good morning, everybody. Welcome again to another OPP OnPattison Podcast. So happy you're here with us on a beautiful Tuesday morning as we have a lot to talk about, of course. And joining me today, I'm Bob Cooney. Joining me today is the wonderful, the sunburned Tim Kelly. How are you, buddy? How's the face feeling?
I'm good. Much better than like a day or two ago. So I learned my lesson. I will never go play tennis not taking sunscreen again.
You were burning off the screen when you and I were together on Sunday night doing Phillies stoplight. So you were the stop sign. You were the red stop sign for Phillies stoplight the other day. But Tim, a lot to talk about today. We're going to be joined later on by Francesco Ruscio, who's going to be talking some fun stuff with us. Joseph A. Wechter Jr. is producing us today, so we hats off to him and welcome him to our modest little podcast here. A lot to talk about, Tim. A.J. Brown, obviously, the Phillies road trip coming off of that. Bryce Harper had some really interesting things to say about the labor situation. And we're going to get into some fun stuff also when it comes to one of your favorite topics, Tim, bobbleheads. Uniforms and bobbleheads. You are the connoisseur when it comes to that. But we have to start off, obviously, with the news that came about. What time was it? About 4:01, 4:02 yesterday, Tim?
Yeah, within 5 minutes of it opening.
Yeah, so A.J. Brown, to no one's surprise, gets dealt to the New England Patriots. Eagles get back a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick, in which New England has two fifth-round picks. They will get the better of those two. I don't know what more can be said. It's kind of like you wait for the inevitable, whatever it is in life, and it happens. You have all these thoughts leading up to it, and then when it does happen, does any of your thoughts change, Tim?
No, not particularly. I think we even knew the terms basically of what the deal was going to be in the days leading up to it, that it was going to be a 2028 first-round pick. That's what happened. You get the fifth-round pick as well. I've seen a few people talking about, well, I wish they got more. They had no leverage. It's amazing they got one first-round pick. You had a guy that you knew wanted out and wanted a different situation. The team, I think, was also at the same point where they realized it was time for a change. There was a report, I believe it was from Jeff McClain, I don't want to get that wrong, that said the Rams were interested, but once they reviewed his medicals, they didn't like what they saw with his knee. So basically the Eagles had one team that was a serious player for it, and they managed to get a first-round pick. Now, sure, it would have been ideal if they got a first-round pick next year. It would have been ideal if they had been able to get a first-round pick this year somehow. But that's not the reality. And I think all in all, they made out pretty well, because you're talking about a receiver. You don't know how many years left he has at an elite level. If you had waited another year, his value may very well have plummeted. So I think he'll still be a good player for the Patriots, but to trade a first-round pick for a guy, get 4 seasons out of him where you go to 2 Super Bowls and win one, and then get a first-round pick on the back end, I think you made out pretty well.
I think they made out extremely well. And I think one of the underplayed stories in all this, in my mind, is how the Eagles last year had to had to properly address getting A.J. Brown healthy each and every week with his knee. And it was a problem. And God bless him. He was out there pretty much every week. And the talk about losing a step and how that may have bothered him, that people were saying that he's lost a step or whatever. I think the knee is going to become a bigger issue than we have made it here in Philadelphia. And it's funny because we've explored every option of this trade in the months and months leading up to it. But I think there's some serious concern with that knee. And I think to the Eagles' benefit, I don't think it came out all that much talk about what may be going on with that knee and the week-to-week things that he had to go through just to get out on the field. I think that's going to make this an even better trade, Tim.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, there was talk even when the Eagles traded for him when he was only, I think, 25 years old about this knee. So it's been something that's been a long-term concern. You had a soft tissue injury where he missed a game last year with the hamstring. I think he's still going to be really productive when he goes out on the field, but maybe he is at that stage. Like Julio Jones got to a point in his career where every single week he was questionable, basically. And I think A.J. Brown could get to that point where you're talking about him every week. It's like not a lot of practice. Can you give it a go on Sunday? And I think if he does that, he's going to be really successful. Obviously, Drake May had a tremendous season last year, MVP runner-up. Patriots go to the Super Bowl. So I think the Patriots are going to make out pretty well here too. But the Eagles had a guy that didn't want to be here anymore. They didn't. I think they knew that they needed to go in a different direction, and they made this move, and I think it's best for everyone involved.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like people in the locker room that just aren't happy. Now, look, it can't be all kumbaya. We know that. But there's ways of going about it. I've seen disgruntled players up close on a team, on a successful teams, and they know how to keep it to themselves. The ones that cause the trouble, that speak out on it and on themselves. Not only does it not look well on them, to maybe fans or whatever, but your teammates don't like that, especially when you're successful. And the Eagles were 4-0 last year when A.J. Brown first came out and started speaking. You know, I just know how I would feel. I walk into a locker room on a Tuesday morning after we just went 4-0 on a Sunday, and I hear somebody complaining that they're not getting the ball, and I'd be like, are you kidding me? Really? This is what I'm coming to work to? I'm coming to work. I don't care what profession you're in. You have great ratings. You have great readership. You have whatever. And somebody's going to complain about themselves. It's just like a smear, a smudge, something you really don't want to have. And addition by subtraction, I guess, maybe, I don't know if the subtraction outweighs the addition of what he was, but I want to ask you, Tim, with Devontae Smith now being number one, with all the different receivers that they have in that room now, with Mekhi Lemon, the first-round draft pick, and you have Hollywood Brown, and you got Devontae Wicks from Dontavian Wicks from the Packers, and Elijah Moore. Are you okay with this group now? Because my concern, and I don't want to overrate this, but at 6 foot, 160 pounds, your number one receiver, how many times are you going to Devontae Smith? And are you cool with that?
I get that concern in theory, but watching Devontae Smith, he plays like he's Calvin Johnson, his ability to go up and get the ball. So I don't have any concern about that. You have Mekhi Lemon, who I think will give you more of an over-the-middle presence. You still have Dallas Goedert. Some of the other guys, like I don't know what Hollywood Brown has left. He's had some good seasons in the NFL. I don't know where he's at exactly. I like Wicks as like a number 3 or 4 guy. I think that was a good pickup. So I think they're in a good situation because in the end, this team is still going to run the ball quite a bit. And a lot of that comes back to Saquon, obviously, but you have Tank Bigsby behind him. Jalen Hurts, you're still going to have involved in the running game. So I think just not having, and to be clear, I think A.J. Brown, a lot of his criticisms were legitimate. It's just this is what the team is. So if you weren't in a position to get A.J. Brown all the targets that he wanted, then you moved in a different direction. And I do wonder, this is going a little bit off script, but the number of people that spent the last year saying there's nothing to see here, this is just a media creation. It wasn't.
No.
And it's very similar to a guy that's going to be coming in to play the Phillies tonight, how that whole thing went down over the last year. I think if the people that are covering the team are telling you, things are a little weird. And in this case, you didn't need the people covering the team to tell you things are a little weird. You have them reading a book on the sideline. You have just continuously seeming unhappy. A lot of times things are exactly what they seem. And I think in this case, that's what it was.
Like, I don't think anything was hidden with A.J. Brown. I think a lot of it was orchestrated by himself. You talk about the book on the sidelines. He picked weird times for fans or followers or teammates to come out and talk about his displeasure in the offense. You know, like I said, 4-0 was the first time he came out and spoke about it. His seemingly lack of hustle, of desire to block, of desire to run routes, of desire to lay out for balls last year certainly comes into play also. I don't think it was driven, any of this was driven by anyone but A.J. Brown himself. I don't think there's any question upon that. Teammates went out of their way to say, oh, no, you know, he's a great player and we love him. And even the quarterback backed him up. Nick Sirianni talking about, like, you know, he's a great player and we all love him. And he was the only one that brought the disgruntledness about the locker room. I don't, there is no other way to point than to A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and I not to wade into the TMZ waters here, but Jalen Hurts, I believe, is the godfather of one of AJ Brown's kids.
Is that right?
Yes. For AJ Brown to have a wedding and Jalen Hurts is not there, and we don't know, maybe Jalen Hurts wasn't invited, but if he wasn't invited, that's a story. And if he was invited and didn't go, that's also a story. So clearly the relationship, I know there's a million insane theories floating around the internet, but clearly the relationship between these two was not in a good place. I think when Brandon Graham, he had the slip up, and he tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube and say, right, "Oh, I was wrong." No, he wasn't wrong. He was too honest for his own good, and they kept it together. But even when this team was winning, even with the year they won the Super Bowl, things weren't copacetic, and I think it was time. But A.J. Brown had a great run with the Eagles. He's arguably the best receiver in the history of the team. I mean, you win, you go to 2 Super Bowls, you win one. He's got the 2 highest totals in terms of receiving yards in a season. So I feel like there's some people that think there needs to be some huge takeaway here. The takeaway, it was time, but in the time you were together, you made it work. And that's a lot of times how it goes with receivers.
So I remember the night the Eagles made the trade for him. It was on draft night. We were out in Las Vegas, I believe, for something with my old job. And we're sitting there during the draft, and they get him, and we looked at each other like, are you kidding me? So I was thinking of that last night, and I want to ask you this, Tim. If I were to say to you everything that you just laid out, okay, you're going to get A.J. Brown, an unbelievable receiver. He's going to be your number one. He's going to go for over 1,000 yards for 4 consecutive years. He's going to be the only Eagles wide receiver ever to do that. All the accolades you put out there, top 2 most receiving yards in a year, 2 Super Bowls, all that. But you're only going to have him for 4 years, and it's going to cost you. Now, money doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care because it's not my money. But in the NFL, it does matter because you only have so much to spend. You're going to get rid of him and have to play out his salary cap hit over 2 years and whatever effect that may have. Is that good enough for you, Tim? If I were to lay all of that stuff out when they did get him on draft night on the trade 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, would that be okay for you?
Yeah, 1,000%. You won a Super Bowl. Flags fly forever. I mean, and he went to another one where he played well. So no regrets whatsoever, but I think it was time to move on.
Yeah, no question about it. So we also didn't mention other things. We've talked all this offseason, to me it seems like, besides the A.J. Brown stuff, it's been the Sean Mannion, and you brought up the running game, and I brought up the other receivers in the room, and you drafted another tight end to be behind Dallas Goedert. And offensive line, are they going to be healthy? Kind of a pattern here that we all keep going offense. Is there other things about the Eagles, Tim, or like, you know, I think you and I work in a newspaper kind of mind. All right, we know what the lead is, and the lead's been overplayed with A.J. Brown and Sean Mannion, 2 leads there. What are the secondary stories? Like, what are the biggest stories that interest you now that those things are kind of out of the way, going into you know what's going to be soon Eagles training camp? What are the things that you need or you want to see answers to?
We may not get an answer to this until the regular season, although they do have competition, I guess, that will be in camp. But I want to see, is Jake Elliott going to be Jake Elliott? Is he going to be a reliable kicker? He's probably the best kicker in Eagles history, although David Akers certainly has a case. But, like, it's been a little questionable recently. So I think, do you get him where he's back in his peak form, or are you at the point where you need to talk about going in another direction?
Wow. I asked the talking point. You went to kicker.
It's big, though, because he was a weapon for so long. Can he get back to being that weapon? But I also am interested, does Brandon Graham end up coming back? I think we're at the point of the offseason where that becomes a story. So how do they kind of replace Jalen Phillips, losing him? There's a lot of interesting questions on the defense, and they're lucky to have Vic Fangio back. Yeah. I do believe the report from Jimmy Kempski that he was going to retire, even though I know he now says he doesn't. Of course, he's going to say that. And like you said, I mean, we've focused a lot on offense, but for good reason. And who becomes, you have Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon. Who kind of steps in and is that third one? Is it Wicks, or does Hollywood Brown step into that? Does Elijah Moore? Who becomes that next target? And obviously you still have Dallas Goedert in the picture as well.
I'd love to see that next target. Now, he's not going to be a top 3 as probably on this team as far as reception goes. But I would love, and I think I said this to you before, it might have been Anthony, to see Saquon Barkley catching the ball 50 to 60 times out of the backfield. I really would. Like, he is such a weapon. And to get him in an open field, to get him on a linebacker coming out of the backfield, when you do have these other weapons and the way that Sean Mannion supposedly is going to run this offense, I would love to see Saquon Barkley get the ball a lot out of the backfield. Screen. Whatever happened? Remember the Eagles used to be a great screen team, Tim?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that? Can you draw that up for Sean Mannion?
Andy Reid left. That's what happened. No, I agree. I think we did talk about like wheel routes and potentially getting him open that way. If you're going to be using the middle of the field more, maybe the outside becomes more open for someone leaking out of the backfield. So you have that opportunity with Saquon, and you have a number 2 running back in Tank Bigsby that is really capable. So if Saquon is getting a few more touches in the passing game and you need to go to him, or you need someone else to maybe take an extra touch or 2 in the backfield, you have a guy in Bigsby that's able to do that.
All right, so there was another big trade in the NFL yesterday, Tim, and Myles Garrett gets out of Cleveland. God bless him. Gets out of Cleveland, goes to the Los Angeles Rams. Now, you hear about this. Jared Verse, a very nice young player, goes from Cleveland to goes from Los Angeles to Cleveland. But I see the Myles Garrett. Were we doing something yet? Oh, we were in a meeting yesterday when it came down. And I was like, Myles Garrett, no way. And then you see it's the Rams. How bad is that for the Eagles in the NFC that Myles Garrett is now going to be lining up for the Rams?
Yeah, it's not great. And the Rams already got Trent McDuffie in the offseason. You know their offense, assuming health with Stafford and Devontae Adams, is going to be really good. So, it's not good. I think the Rams, obviously the Seahawks, I guess, come into the season as the favorite. But I thought for a lot of last season, most of last season, the Rams were the best team in the NFL. They had Trent McDuffie, who's one of the better cornerbacks in the league, and Myles Garrett, who is as good as a pass rusher as there's been in the last 20 years. Like, you add him, and I forget where I was listening to this, but he's been doing all this in Cleveland where he's not getting any like single team. He's getting double teamed every single time. Now you go to a team where there's other capable players on the team. It's scary. And he's 30 years old. I mean, how many more years is he going to be at his peak? We don't know. But if he's at it for 2 or 3 more years, that's really good. Now, I think the Browns got a good return. I think Jared Verse is a star, and they got another first-round pick on top of that. And I think they should have moved on from him sooner. But moving on from him now, you got there was no way he was going to top last season. So he breaks the sack record, the single-season sack record in your uniform, gets to go on. You get to move in another direction. I think it's one of those trades that's going to work out really well for both sides. And for the Eagles, I mean, Luke Lendler wrote a story for us on OnPattison, and in it he put a stat I couldn't believe, that Myles Garrett's only played the Eagles once in the regular season in 8 years. So obviously that's going to change now, and it potentially will end up that you're in the NFC Championship game or the divisional round playing against Myles Garrett, and that's tough, especially if you're unsure if Lane Johnson's still at his peak and what you have on the offensive line exactly.
Yeah, and the Eagles have done well against premier pass rushers over the years. Like Lane Johnson had great success against Micah Parsons when he was with the Cowboys, right? Aaron Donald never had great success. Like, he didn't dominate as much as the Eagles and the Rams played each other. He never really dominated there. And there's other pass rushers through the years that the Eagles have done really well with. Now it goes back to, as you said, is Lane Johnson, how long is he going? How's the health going to be with this offensive line? I think one of the first thoughts I had yesterday when we saw that come over, that Myles Garrett was going to the Rams, was, wow, this offensive line has to be healthy. They have to be, 100% going through this season maybe for the last time altogether. I don't know, but the Rams are certainly looking to, with Stafford being 38 years old. As you mentioned, Adams is getting up there. Puka Nacua had a strange offseason, and we hope that he's okay mentally and whatever struggles he was going through before football even gets started. But they're going all in to win a Super Bowl or Super Bowls over the next few years. And that doesn't really bode well for the Eagles, Tim, who are probably in the same situation.
No, it doesn't. And I think that you mentioned it with the Rams. Devontae Adams, I think, is a Hall of Famer. He's 33 years old. Matthew Stafford, there were questions. He won the MVP last year, but there were questions about whether his back was going to be good to play last season. So you're near the end there probably. And Puka Nacua, in addition to the fact that he pretty consistently gets himself in hot water off the field, he also plays like a car crash style that maybe he's not going to age particularly well. So, I mean, I think he's the best wide receiver in the NFL when he's on the field. So while you have that, go all in, and the Rams are doing that. So I think they become one of the favorites, and they become one of the teams that the Eagles are chasing.
No question. All right, you mentioned winners. Winners win, Tim. Wapner Newman, they've been winning for families in Philly and New Jersey since 1978. That's before you were born, Tim. Need a winner? We'll call Wapner Newman at 215-569-0900 or visit them at wapnernewman.com. All right, Tim, you're going to be out at the ballpark today. CBP, Citizens Bank Park. Phillies coming off of a 4-2 West Coast road trip, which included San Diego and Los Angeles. All right, cool, right? I also looked at something yesterday. I think it was CBS Sports I was on, where they gave their MLB rankings. So I said, let me scroll down and see what they have to say. Two things. One, Phillies were number 7. 7, Tim. Number 7. And it said, coming off a 4-2 road trip in San Diego and Los Angeles, anyone would take that at any time. Phillies are looking up something like that. I was a little surprised at the number 7. First of all, I want you to comment on that. And then also, 4-2 road trip, and Francesca brought this up to us too, and we'll talk to her about this a little bit later. A 4-2 road trip, I think we would all take San Diego and Los Angeles. But how did you feel about that too? So talk about number 7 ranking first, and then the 4-2 road trip.
Yeah, I think 7 ranking, I haven't mapped it out exactly, but I understand where they're coming from with the 7 ranking, because since Don Mattingly's taken over, the Phillies have had won games at an insane clip. The problem is, yes, in theory, you would take 4-2 every single time. But when you're talking about trying to sustain something, the way that the Phillies are winning right now is not sustainable. You're not going to have Christopher Sanchez not give up a run the rest of the season. You're not going to have Zach Wheeler even pitch as you saw Zach Wheeler have a mortal start on Friday, and you didn't win the game, even though he kind of kept you in it. So, and Joe Anderon's not going to not blow saves the whole season. You can't win every game 4-2 or 3-1 or 1-0. Like you need to have some games where you kind of run away with it offensively. And the Phillies just aren't there right now. You saw a road trip where Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber weren't on a tear home run-wise, and they scored 17 total runs. And that's great that they went 4-2, but the Yankees scored 13 runs in an individual inning on Sunday. The Phillies scored 17 runs the whole weekend. It's not sustainable. And in the past, I think the last couple of years, you've been in this trap where you're so reliant on your top 3 of Schwarber, Harper, and Turner. Well, now you're just down to the top 2 of Schwarber and Harper, and Trey Turner has not only not been positive, he's really struggled for much of this season, and I think that leaves you really thin. So, yeah, they've won recently. They've gotten their season back on track. They do have World Series caliber pitching, but their offense is a long way away.
Long way away, and I think you need to find a remedy quickly, and you and I talked about this. We're going to get deeper into it, but this goes to what Joe is about to pull up for us. Quotes from Bryce Harper yesterday about the labor talks. And it's very likely you might not have a season next year. And then that's more of the reason, we'll get into it, why I think you should go all in now. But here's what Bryce Harper had to say. We're coming from 2 different areas, but both have to understand our game is in a great position right now to succeed. And we can't lose that momentum. Harper told this to ESPN. We can't lose that momentum as players. We can't lose that momentum as owners. So wherever we're at, whatever they're coming with, whatever we're coming with, you have to come to an agreement before any of that happens, because there's other things to do. It's not like 1994 where there was nothing else to do. It's not just, oh, baseball's here. No, there's a lot of other things to do than just watch baseball. I thought it was great of Harper to say this. He's right. You know, as little kids, you weren't around, I don't think, in 94, Tim. But I remember 94 like it was yesterday, because I was so disappointed that baseball was out. The All-Star game was canceled. Like it hit home. And that's what we did as kids. We watched baseball. Like that's what we wanted to do. And when it wasn't there, it sucked. And I think Harper's hitting on this well. What's your thoughts on what might happen next year and what Harper had to say?
Yeah, I don't know if that was a good quote from a union perspective, but from the perspective of like getting it and being relatable, I think it's very good, because baseball is at a good place. The product that baseball has now compared to when they had the lockout after the 2021 season is drastically different. Baseball was slow. It was losing interest. You've had the pitch clock has changed the game. ABS has been really successful this year. Banning the shifts has been successful. I like the runner on second. I don't know how much that really changes people watching the game or not, but I think it's in a much better spot. I like the universal DH. So I do think there are things that can change, but you have way too much momentum right now to talk about missing games and certainly missing a season. And I don't ultimately think that they will miss a season, but it's concerning. I would be surprised if the season starts on time next year, in which case you are kind of losing some of the momentum, because you had one of the great World Series of all time last year. The Dodgers did end up winning, but they were on the ropes, and the Dodgers have certainly seemed mortal this season. So I think what Bryce Harper said there makes a lot of sense. And he went on in that article to say, I don't know like how many years I have. I'm getting later in my career. And this is a group, a lot of the guys playing now, they already missed a good chunk of what would have been the 2020 season because of COVID. So their numbers already took a hit from that. If you lose another part or all of the season, that affects their legacies as well. So I totally get that perspective from Bryce Harper. And I did a story on OnPattison last week, kind of going over the two proposals. And I'm not going to do the neutrality bias in this. Like, I'm more in favor of labor and in favor of the players, because I think it represents a microcosm of society. But I think there are areas where both of these two sides will end up having to compromise at some point. The reality, though, is that point's not going to come till January or February, most likely, if that.
Right. So Harper talked about baseball as a whole. Let's dumb it down to the Phillies a little bit here, Tim, with exactly what you said. So these guys are getting older. We're talking about Harper, Schwarber, Turner, all the Zach Wheeler. They're getting older. The must win or win now is more prevalent with the Phillies right now, I think, than it's been in a while. So you talked about the bats earlier. They're not hitting. Whenever anybody brings something up, it's by the trade deadline they should. At the trade deadline they should. No, I'm done with that, Tim. And you and I talked about this the other night. But I want to do something now. Like, I think the Phillies need to do something now, sooner than later, because they might not play again next year, or they might not start on time or have a season next year, because Schwarber, Harper, Turner, and Wheeler are all getting so much older. I don't know if you can wait until August to do something. I'm of the feeling you got to do something now. Now, I know the next question is going to be, well, what are you going to do? I don't know, but something big. I think you got to go all in for a Mike Trout, or go all in for somebody else that you think is going to come here and give you a bat that you might need. What's your thoughts on that?
I just think it takes two sides, and most teams are not going to be willing to sell right now. With Mike Trout, we talked about this the other night, but I think it's a more reasonable thing to speculate on than it has been in the past. I think the problem there is I just don't think he's going to want to be traded. I know Scott Lauber of the Inquirer spoke to Joe Madden, his former manager, and he basically said if the Angels came to him and said something, then maybe he'd do it, right, but he's never going to go to them. And I don't know if the Angels are going to come to him. Like, if I'm the Angels at this point, you've already blown it. You might as well have him spend his whole career with the team, hit his 500, 600th home run in your uniform. You're not going to get a great trade return for him at this stage. So I would hold on to him if I'm the Angels. And you just look at some of the other potential options. You don't know with a lot of these teams. Ketel Marte, the Diamondbacks are playing good right now. Taylor Ward, the Orioles have gotten going a little bit again. So I don't think most of these teams on June 1st are going to be in the market to trade away their best players. Not to say no one will, but it's not usually how it works.
Well, that's where you give them the line from The Godfather, Tim. I don't know if you ever saw it or not, but
I did, yes.
You make them an offer they can't refuse. That's what you have to do. But I am anxious.
I don't know that they have pieces to make offers that teams can't refuse, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. But I would love to see them try to do something early rather than, wait it out to the trade deadline and then see what's going on. You're a 500 team, and I don't know if the fan base is ready for it. All right, one last thing before we bring in Francesca, Tim. I have a question for you. I went through every box score on Sunday, which we always did as little kids because newspapers had every box score, and it was awesome. You knew every lineup for every team and all. It's not as easy now, but I went through every box score the other day just to see this in my head. How come nobody hits 300 anymore, Tim? How come nobody, like back in the day you had, and I went through box scores back not too long ago, like the 2010s. You had top three guys in the lineup hitting over 300. You had guys hitting 340 lead in the league, and go back to the Wade Boggs of the world and different guys like that. Like those, there was hitters that hit for average every year. You don't have it anymore. I went through. I think I came through like two. Who were they? I came through like two regular players that were hitting around 300. One was, what was it? Alvarado, I think, for Houston may have been one. And May for the Yankees may have been another one, whatever. But, like, I have a theory on it, and this theory started about 10 years ago, Tim. Why is nobody hitting 300 anymore? And it can't be as simple as pitchers are better than they were before.
Well, that's a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, Jacob Mizorowski wasn't pitching back then. You didn't have starters throwing 103. Trey Turner got asked about this, and after he won the batting title last year, and essentially said, we keep telling you guys that the pitching is way harder. You have guys throwing in the 90s and 100s. You have way more specialists in the game than you did then. There's way less like tired pitchers pitching in the seventh inning now because you bring in Jose Alvarado or someone like that to come pitch. So I think that makes a difference. There has been less of an emphasis on contact, so there's something to that. There's more of an emphasis on just getting on base by any means now, which has brought more walks about. So I think there's less of a focus on batting average and more on base and OPS. So that's definitely part of it. But I do think it's harder than ever to be a hitter. I mean, you talk about Aaron Nola can't survive as a pitcher throwing in the low 90s anymore. 15 years ago, you could pitch in the major leagues for 20 years throwing in the low 90s. It's just a different game. And I think that is a big part of it.
The drop-off is just so severe. There has to be more to it. I hear what you're saying. The Randy Johnsons, the Greg Maddux of the world, they're saying to you, like, what are you kidding me? Plus hitters now, with the system of, everything's a ball and a strike, it's almost like here it is, hit the ball, but it's just not happening. My theory is this, Tim, and I had this like 10 years ago, how sports was going to change. About 10 years ago was when the concussion stuff was getting at a major high, and parents were worried about their kids playing football and even soccer and this and that and the other. I think when it came to baseball and their kids showed some talent, hey, be a pitcher. You can throw hard and you only have to play every 5 days. That way your brain's not going to get hurt or anything like that. I think that's where the uptick in pitching kind of came, and maybe the downslide of hitting also came. But that's just my theory that I started about 10 years ago, and I'm going to ride it out, Tim, because I'm a stubborn guy.
Well, I don't think you're wrong about that. I also think that people are chasing the 100 percentile outcome more now than they did in the past. Like, you want to hit the 400-foot home run, you want to throw 100. You don't have to pitch that long at a high rate to make an insane amount of money now. So I do think that, yes, more of the better guys have become pitchers. You have more just in general specialization. I know we talked about this, but less guys that you hear about where they were the best pitcher on their high school team and then they also played shortstop. Like
right.
You're pitching and then you're not going anywhere near the field when you're not pitching, I think, in a lot of senses. So that contributes to it as well. But I do think the biggest factor, beyond the fact that you don't have as many people taking steroids as you did 15 or 20 years ago, is that you don't have they weren't throwing 100 then.
Yeah, well, we could talk to old pitchers from the major leagues who insist that the gun is different now, and they're really not throwing the ball 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
but that's a story for a different day. What we need to do right now is bring in our friend Joe, if you don't mind. Francesca Ruscio, there she is. Good to see you, Francesca. How's things? Uh-oh.
She's muted.
She's muted. No.
Your mic is muted still. You got to hit the mic button.
Oh, how about now?
There we go.
Hear my voice now?
Awesome.
Yes.
Beautiful.
How's it going? What's the word?
Things are going great. We're going to be playing over at Tallamore today, Rolling Green. I got the invite to Rolling Green for this weekend. I'm really excited about that.
Nice. I've played there a few times. It's a great course.
It is nice, isn't it?
Yes.
When you guys were talking about A.J. Brown's trade, I was just getting a bunch of mixed feelings about it when I was just going through just the internet, and just netizens started coming out of the woodworks. Then I started to think about trades that actually do still hurt. Like, we're still butthurt about certain trades in Philly. And I want to know from you guys, and I actually made a little list. I want to know from you guys, before I give you guys my list, top 5 trades that Philadelphia is still pretty much butthurt about, even to this day.
I can say I didn't think I was going to use the phrase butthurt today much. But,
yeah.
Tim, I'll let you start on this because your trades are probably a little bit more fresh than mine.
Right. The one that stands out, the two that stand out to me would be trading LaShawn McCoy to the Bills for Kiko Alonso. Chip Kelly doing that. Obviously, it was a disaster. LaShawn McCoy probably is the best running back in team history, but had he played another 2 seasons with the Eagles, certainly would have been. You traded him and got very little in return. And then trading Cliff Lee after the 2009 World Series, they traded him to the Mariners. Now, they got Roy Halladay. People think that was all one trade. It was 2 separate trades, kind of contingent on each other. So they get Roy Halladay from the Blue Jays, but they trade Cliff Lee to the Mariners. Cliff Lee has this insane contract year, is a great mercenary, pitches half the year for the Mariners, half the year for the Rangers. The Rangers go to the World Series that season. And you could have had Cliff Lee, and obviously they end up bringing him back in free agency after that. But you had a guy that was as good a pitcher as anyone in baseball, and you could have had another year at least with him and Halladay together in the rotation. So, and you got nothing for him. Filippo Mott, Tyson Gillies, it wasn't a good trade. So those are kind of the two that stick out to me. But I definitely remember Allen Iverson getting traded. And Bob, I'll even throw this one at you that might throw you off a little. I remember being really bummed when Kyle Korver got traded.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. You and my son. One of my sons is a huge Kyle Korver fan.
And he had a great career. He had a long career in the NBA.
Yeah, he did. No question about it. Now he's, I believe, assistant GM, if not, assistant GM in Cleveland. Or Atlanta, I think it is.
Yeah.
I go back a ways. The 76ers won the NBA title in 1983. The next year, they drafted Charles Barkley. They had 5 starters on that 83 team. 4 of them were Hall of Famers. The 5th one, Andrew Toney, should have been a Hall of Famer if he didn't get cut short by injury. Their first guy off the bench was Bobby Jones, who's in the Hall of Fame. So you're talking their first 6 players were kind of Hall of Famers. And then they draft Charles Barkley. So think of what a dynasty that could have been. Then they trade Moses Malone. Then they trade the number 1 pick that they had and got Roy Hinson for that. And so those trades are just like, they still turn my stomach a little bit. But that was before your guys' time. The Eric Lindros trade, although it had to happen, it's much like the A.J. Brown thing. was the end of what could have been. What could have been when Eric Lindros got here, and it never really came all the way to fruition, although he is a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many big ones. Francesca, what are yours?
Those are actually my top two. Trading Cliff Lee back in 2009, that takes the cake at number one, and then Charles Barkley takes the cake at number two. So kudos to you guys. For the rest of my list, I did have number 3, Jimmy Butler leaving, and number 4, Terrell Owens' departure. Eagles fans still wonder what another year would have looked like. So that came in at number 4. And then number 5, Foles leaving again. And wow. I know that was more of an emotional disaster, but I understand the rationale behind it at the time. But that's the top 5 that I have for trades. But you guys got 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So you know what comes into play in some of the trades we talk about is driveways. So you guys remember Terrell Owens doing sit-ups in his driveway in Morristown? Yeah. So that was trade. So the next day, I was working for the Daily News at the time. I was in Terrell Owens' driveway all day waiting for him to come out with a bunch of other media people. But anyway, driveways and Terrell Owens. Maurice Cheeks, my favorite all-time basketball player. And every time I see Mo, am I still your favorite player? Yes, you are, Mo. My all-time favorite basketball player, played for the Sixers. He was told in his driveway by a reporter that the Sixers had traded him.
I don't know that I ever knew that story, actually.
Yeah, look. I want to say it wasn't Barkan, but I want to say it was. But he was told in his driveway that he had gotten traded by the 76ers by a media outlet. So driveways have come into play in Philadelphia sports. I'll tell you my biggest, saddest, I don't want to say saddest, my most unbelievable trade, and this isn't Philadelphia. When Wayne Gretzky went from Edmonton to Los Angeles, it really hit me as a sports person, like, wow, anybody can be traded. Anybody can be traded. It's a business, and the greatest of all time in hockey, in my opinion, can be traded, and he was. How about on a national level, guys? Anything?
I would say maybe less of a trade, but when Albert Pujols left the Cardinals to go to the Angels, I thought that was jarring because he felt like someone that was so meant to spend his whole career in one place and with a great and he ended up back there and hitting his 700th home run. So that was kind of a cool culmination of things. But in terms of players moving on nationally, that's definitely one that sticks out to me.
Bob, when you said anybody can be traded, for me, not so much nationally, but in the NFL for our home team, that was Zach Ertz. That whole trade. That was when I thought, like, anybody can be traded at this point, even though like he just won us a Super Bowl. I just thought that whole thing was we rugged him. That was my overall like surprise takeaway of, wow, anybody can be traded. I immediately just thought of that. Yeah.
It's funny. We've named some Eagles, and one of them we haven't named. Many would argue is the greatest quarterback in the franchise history. Donovan McNabb was traded to the Washington Redskins back then, right? Mm-hmm. Wasn't it like on Easter or something like that?
It's on Easter Sunday.
It was on Easter Sunday,
2010, I believe.
And it's funny because the three of us and Joe Wechter, our great producer here, we put together some lists. None of us named McNabb. And it's kind of a microcosm of, is that how this city feels about?
Well, because if you remember, they lost week 17 at that time to the Cowboys. Then they go to Dallas, and he does that guitar thing as he's coming out to the field, and they lose that game. And it felt like it was time. And as it turned out, it was time because he was cooked at that point. Yeah, it didn't work out well in Washington at all. And here's a good national one. From Steve, the Champ Bailey Clinton Portis trade. Champ Bailey, Clinton Portis is a really good running back, but Champ Bailey ends up in the Hall of Fame. So that's a good call. I think J.J. Watt getting traded from the Texans was a big deal. Obviously, all the stuff that played out with Deshaun Watson was shocking, but that's a good call as well.
A couple of the locals that we didn't mention, Kurt Schilling.
That was time.
It was time. It's a lot of these were time. Chase Utley, it was time. As much as beloved as he was here, it was time. We mentioned McCoy. Oh, Claude Giroux.
It was time. I kind of feel.
Yeah, Drew's another one. Like I used to work with somebody that was such a huge Claude Drew fan, and he was very good, very good.
Yeah.
I just never thought he was the tide turner that he could have been. All right, we've talked about so many important things when it comes to Philly sports. The AJ Brown trade, the Phillies 4-2 road trip, and now coming back. Nick Castellanos coming back tonight. Let's hit on that real quick to the two of you. Francesca, what were your thoughts on Nick Castellanos when he was here? And now what do you think as he's coming back as a San Diego Padre? How do you think the fans are going to react to him? I don't know if he'll be in the starting lineup tonight or not. But if he is, how do you think fan reaction will be, Francesca?
Well, he wasn't a disaster. He's definitely one of those rare examples where both sides were right. Let's just see how he does. I really don't have much of a say on that one, but I'm pretty neutral with that. Let's just see how he does. Yeah.
Tim, what about you? All right, here it is, Tim. Ready? Now batting, Dan Baker. Dan Baker says, now batting for your San Diego Padres, number, I don't know what he is, Nick Castellanos. What's the response?
I think it's mixed, but I think it's probably more cheers, but it's not like an overwhelming like Rhys Hoskins or Chase Utley or Jim Thome. I'm thinking of some of the people that came back and got like huge cheers. It's not going to be like that, but I would imagine whenever it is, they'll play a nice video. He'll tip his hat to the crowd. I think he's still relatively positive, relatively popular with a lot of fans that were insistent all last season that there was nothing wrong going on. But I think that'll be Aaron Nola's pitching tonight, so I don't know whether or not he'll be in the lineup, but I'm sure at some point this series, and if not, it'd almost be more climatic if he comes in as a pinch hitter in like the 7th inning to like face Jose Alvarado or somebody like that. I think that would be more entertaining than just he's in the starting lineup. But the fact that they played them out there a week ago, I think took a lot of the steam out of this. And honestly, he's not a very good player at this stage of his career. So it's not like when Deshaun Jackson or T.O. came back to Philly where you felt like, oh, wow, they really screwed up. He's a fringe major leaguer at this point.
Does he get a video tribute?
Yeah, I think so. And the thing about Nick Castellanos is you can make the greatest video tribute of all time because he has 5 or 6 moments that are just incredible. So I think he'll get a video tribute, and because of that, he'll get cheers. And I don't think he should get booed. I think it ended poorly, and he underperformed his contract, but he had some good moments, was part of some good teams, and leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at that. All right, we're going to move on to a subject. But before we do, I have to ask you, have you found yourself on the injured list? Well, if you have, you can get help now. Wapner Newman is Pennsylvania and New Jersey's premier medical malpractice and injury attorneys. You can give them a call at 215-569-0900, or you can find them at wapnernewman.com. All right, I'm going to sit back on this one a little bit because although I do have a Christopher Sanchez bobblehead sitting right here, I'm not a bobblehead guy. I've never been a uniform collector, jersey collector, none of those things. But I appreciate people that are. I really do. I don't yuck somebody's yum. I really do appreciate it. So Tim and Francesca, with the help of Joe Wechter, I think you guys are going to give us your top 10 bobbleheads, Tim? Is that
Joe's going to pull up the list here. But yesterday, I actually had done this article previously, but updated with some new bobbleheads, some ones that maybe slipped through the cracks the last time I did it. And Joe's got the list here at OnPattison. At number 10, this was the Steve Carlton bobblehead from, I believe this was one of the final years at the Vet. So 2000. So the final year at the Vet. I think this is a very good bobblehead. Best pitcher in the history of the team. Cool bobblehead.
Right. Can I give a real quick Steve Carlton story? I was at the game the night that they released him. So I was walking around. I was a young kid walking on the concourse, and they were announcing it over the speaker. The Phillies have released Steve Carlton. I started crying. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that bobblehead picture may or may not be on the floor right behind me where that photo shoot was done. Number 9, we have Ryan Howard, Francesca. I like this one because they don't usually do road uniform bobbleheads, and I think that it captures the swing through here. And obviously, home run hitters are super popular, and Ryan Howard's one of the most popular Phillies ever. So this one, given out in 2007, so it was immediately after his MVP season.
I would probably put him higher on my list. Maybe throw in like for number 9, like the Roy Halladay one. I think Halladay would be 9. I would actually put Howard maybe like top 5 actually.
Ooh, all right.
Maybe even 6. That might be the most
maybe
fitting
6. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This one I got a lot of crap on, and rightfully so, because I forgot to include this one.
Yeah.
But this is the Scott Franzke, Larry Anderson one. I'm going to say this. They nailed young Scott Franzke. This is one of the best bobbleheads I've ever seen. LA, I don't know that it looks that much like him.
You should have put the mustache on LA.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know that, with all due respect, LA's had that much hair in the time that I've known him. But no, Scott Franzke's great. And I think the announcer bobbleheads are cool, as we'll see later on in this list. But I think it'd be cool in the future if they did one with Tom McCarthy and John Kruk as well.
Do these things actually gain value over time as justifiable collector's pieces or no?
Yeah.
Because I don't own any bobbleheads.
Right. I think some of them do and some of them don't, but certain ones on this list, as it becomes further away and people lose them when they move and things like that. Yeah, I think they do. This one is really cool. This Larry Bowa one from 2015. And what's cool about it, even though it's not the highest rated Larry Bowa one, even on this list, I like the attention to detail with the cap underneath the batting helmet, which you don't see anymore. I never understood why Juan Pierre used to do that, why you would wear your hat under your batting helmet, but Larry Bowa did, and this is a cool bobblehead. And
they have his stance perfect.
Yes.
That's exactly Larry Bowa's stance. They have that perfect.
Yes, very cool. This Mike Schmidt one is cool as well from 2003, another one from the final year of the vet. The one thing I don't like about a lot of bobbleheads is, like, if a guy's batting, like, his head will be facing a different direction from where, like, the name is listed. This one you can just display straight on and you see the whole thing. So I think that's a cool, and it looks a lot like Mike Schmidt.
Yes,
Mike Schmidt, I had him, like, if I had to do a ranking, I had him at number 5 for me. Okay. So not too far. Yeah. But this list is pretty crazy.
Here, this one is one of my favorites, and I know this is a sore subject for a lot of people because they gave this one out this year on the Fanatic's birthday, but they only gave it out to kids 14 and under at the park and also media members. If you look behind me somewhere back there, that exact bobblehead is displayed, and I just think it's awesome. He's got the bat over his shoulder, sitting on the Liberty Bell, dressed like George Washington. I think it's awesome.
It's good.
Wow.
Here, this Larry Bowa one is funny to me, as you see there. I got this as a gift, and I took it into show and tell when I was in like kindergarten. So it is an older one, 2001 it says. But yeah, that's a really cool bobblehead. I actually had one when I was a kid, and the head broke off, and somehow I got a second one that's behind me, and that also got chipped somehow. But I think this one's cool because it's kind of a combination of it's cartoonish, but not in a ridiculous way. You got the eye black, the powder blue. I think it's a cool one.
Bowa gets 2 top 10s. Wow.
He does.
Wow.
And so does Mike Schmidt.
Look at that.
This one I do not have. This is one of the ones I don't have, but it shows him, Bob, running out of the batter's box after hitting his 500th home run, which is
Don Robinson in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, one of the most iconic moments in the history of the team. So I think that's a really cool one.
I like that.
This one is at number 2 is my personal favorite, also back there somewhere. The Dick Allen bobblehead. And I think this era of uniform from the Whiz Kids era is the coolest uniforms that the Phillies have had. He's got the stirrups. Dick Allen is probably the coolest player to ever play for the Phillies. So if it's hard to screw up a bobblehead with him, but I think they really nailed this one. And as you scroll down a little bit, Joe, this one is on display now. What they did, they gave select people that came to the stadium, they gave them the powder blue bobblehead, which is the other one was when he won Rookie of the Year in 1964. This one is when he came back at the end of his career. And
76,
there's a lot of great stories about kind of he was treated extremely poorly racially from the first time he was here, comes back and kind of things get made right the second time around. And what they did when they gave this out a few years ago, they one out of every 1976 fans at the stadium, 1,976 fans, I believe, is what happened, got this bobblehead instead. And then the final one is this Harry and Whitey one, which I do not have in my collection, but I think that's as cool as it gets, Bob.
That's right there. The white jacket, the white shoes on Harry. Does it have Whitey holding a pipe in his hand? I can't see it all that well.
I'm not sure.
I mean, that would be cool, but that one's perfect. It should be number one. Good job by you, Tim. Absolutely fantastic, and they got it good. I mean, that looks like Harry and Whitey.
It does. So
Tim, I didn't even know you collected bobbleheads. This is one thing I'm learning about you.
Well, I collect them.
Don't let it scare you, Francesca.
Media gets all the bobbleheads for free, so I have some of these from when I was a kid, but most of the ones behind me are ones that I've just gotten since covering the team. So I haven't shelled out money for these or anything, but they're like a fun thing. I enjoy this, and I think people get enjoyment out of it. I know when they limit the bobbleheads to first however many at the stadium or to kids, people get mad, particularly with that Fanatic one. So it's cool to have these ones. But Bob, I think that'll kind of do it for the bobblehead discussion. But it was a fun one.
Good bobblehead work by you guys. No, I thought it was cool. The Dick Allen one also, real quick. If you notice, there's something misproportioned in that. It's his bat. His bat is real big. Dick Allen used like a 42-ounce bat. Yes. My dad told me this when I was a little kid. So great job by them making the bat look, bigger than the actual stuff. So, Tim, we know you have to run. Francesca, thanks so much for joining us on a fun conversation. Before we get out of here, we're in the city of champions, so you deserve a champion legal representation. Wapner Newman is Pennsylvania and New Jersey's premier medical malpractice and injury attorneys. You can give them a call at 215-569-0900, or you can reach them at wapnernewman.com. All right, Tim, what else you got? Close this out.
Yeah, Phillies tonight, so certainly looking forward to that. And thank you to Wapner Newman for sponsoring us, and we will talk to you guys on Friday.
Francesca.